Welcome to our episode of Blood, Sweat, and Balance Sheets today. Had a really great conversation with our guest, first doctor I've had on, so Dr. Adrian Mayse, and you get to learn about his journey from a family of educators into the world of education, ultimately becoming a doctor, specializing in accounting. And one of my favorite parts of this story is writing a kid's book called I Want to Be an Accountant When I Grow Up. And I think it's an awesome story, and I hope you really enjoy this episode. All right, welcome back to our next episode of Blood, Sweat, and Balance Sheets. My name is Mike Whitmire. I'm the co-founder and CEO of FloQast, proudly an inactive CPA, which our guest today might not appreciate quite as much as I think the rest of the audience does. So I'm very excited for today's episode. Our first professor, our first doctor on the line here. So Adrian Mayse, welcome to the episode. And would you mind just giving us an introduction, overview of yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Yes, my name is Adrian Mayse. I'm a associate professor and department chair at Howard University. And I just wrote my first children's book, When I Grow Up, I Want to Be an Accountant. So I'm from a small town in Mississippi called Victoria, Mississippi. And I went to school at the University of Mississippi for graduate school at Jackson State University. And I got my CPA during that time and have been in DC for the last 5.5 years.
And I did take the liberty of kind of perusing through your LinkedIn background before we hopped on. So I noticed you majored in finance and then got your master's in accounting afterwards. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, absolutely.
Could you tell us more about that decision and why you wanted to move in that direction?
So I'll give you the short version. So I didn't know about really business as a student coming from high school. And so I was a pre-med chemistry major going into undergrad.
Okay.
And that changed from pre-med of pre-pharmacy chemistry. And I was talking to a church mentor of mine, and she was in banking. And I switched to finance, as I was a banking and finance manager and finance major at the University of Mississippi.
Okay.
What happened is I couldn't find a job and didn't understand, even when I changed my major, like that you needed certain things like a good credit score to be very transparent. And so I was looking for other opportunities to that I could go in, but that was not totally away from my current major. And
Makes
so
sense.
I chose accounting because I was, there was plenty of opportunities there.
Makes perfect sense. And so what did you think about accounting when you took kind of your first course over there?
So another interesting story. So I graduated undergrad in 3 years. So I had another year that I was going to stay, and I didn't have a pleasant experience when I was going to get the major in accounting there.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, University of Mississippi is a predominantly white institution. At the time, I didn't have any white there was no white accounting professors at the institution. And most people in the course were not, people of color. And so I just felt out of place. I felt not engaged in the course I was taking. And so I was like, you know what? I'm finished. Let me go ahead and just finish. I would think about a master's program and use that, go that path, that route, instead of sitting here when I didn't feel comfortable. And so I went to HBCU, Jackson State University, and got my master's in accounting.
And then you kept going from there, right?
Yeah, so from there, it just was a very eye-opening experience because I hadn't seen anyone that was an accountant when I was choosing to go in that direction. So again, the person that was the church mentor was in finance. And so when I got to Jackson State, majority of my faculty members were accountants and CPAs, and they were Ph.Ds. And so it was like this whole world that I didn't even realize existed.
Yeah.
And so that, inspired me to get my CPA exam, to come back and be a professor. So it just opened the door up to it pretty much where my life is now as, a professor.
And is education, you thought, a skill you thought you had before this? Is it kind of a natural tendency of yours, or was it a learned thing along the way and you sort of stumbled into this being the engaging profession for you?
So that's interesting. I have several family members that taught in K-12.
Okay.
My grandfather was an educator. Interesting. He was also a tax preparer, which
There we go.
Yeah, I didn't even connect the dots at the time. But he was, education. That was his degrees were in education, and so it's always been there. But I didn't want to teach. I didn't want to teach K-12. I would say.
Right.
Interestingly, I wrote a children's book, but I did know I wanted to be a doctor, and that was just, I guess, selfish. I wanted to be a doctor. If there was medical doctor, if there was Ph.D. at the time after I had changed majors. So I didn't know I wanted to be called Dr. Mayse.
Okay.
That was there. that was there. That was one thing that was there.
That's a good goal to have.
Yeah, and I that's kind of the story of my life. I have these things that I know I want to accomplish this. I don't know what that looks like, which has worked for me. That I know I have something I want to reach, but I don't know what that looks like to get to that point.
I am so happy you brought this up. It's one of my favorite topics. And so, okay, you want to be a doctor and you're like, I'm not quite sure how to do that. How did you end up actually making that happen?
Well, it was two things. So first thing, when I decided to change my major, well, I'm not going to be a medical doctor. That's not the path I'm going.
Yeah.
And I knew at the time, the only other doctor I knew was, PhD, a professor. So I did know that I would end up being a doctor, but even being a professor, I didn't know. Because, there are doctors in education that have PhDs or other doctorate degrees that are called doctor, but they're not in the classroom. And so I didn't know what it looked like. But I just knew I was going to be called Dr. Mayse. And I did know I was going to go into higher education also at a certain point, but I didn't think it was happening at this time.
Because I was going to say, generally you get the PhD and it's the path through education. I don't think I've met an accountant that I've worked with who has a PhD. So I'd be, I didn't have any partners I worked with that I called doctor, partner, or anything like that. So you had eventually planned on getting that, and you went into industry to work for a little while, right? You had to do that to get your CPA?
Yeah. So the requirements for every state and jurisdiction is different. And so for Mississippi, where I sat for the exam, I feel old now. I believe it was 1 year, 1 year or 2 years of experience. And so, yeah, I knew I had to work, so many years. And so, but that's the great thing about going to Jackson State. When I got there and I met the professors, it was, again, like I said, eye-opening, but it also was I had found mentors, and it was I had learned about, it's called a Ph.D. project, which is a organization that supports African-American, Native American, and Hispanic Americans to be professors in the business discipline. And when she told me about that sealed the deal for me. And the plan was that mentor was that go work for a year, get your CPA, and apply to the PhD program.
Got it.
I worked for 3 years, but that was the plan. That that was the first time that I had a concrete plan. This is what I'm going to do to get that.
Right, but before that conversation, it was a out there goal. Let's figure out how to make it happen. And
yeah, it was out there. And even the children's book, I was going through some emails in 2012 or 13. I had written down that I was going to write a children's book. I had no clue what I was thinking at the time. I didn't know it was going to be this particular book. But, this is what I do. I write down things in general that I know I want to aspire to, not knowing what they're going to look like, because we don't know. Life happens.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's something I do for myself to protect. But anyway.
I do it as well. I think it's a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
And I talk to a lot of people who want to start their own businesses, and they're like, I don't know what to do. How do you do that? And it's I didn't know all this stuff either. You have a goal and you figure it out along the way. And I think the theme I heard from you is you meet mentors and experienced people, and they help guide you and put you on the right path. And I know that's been my experience for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like, on that same list was, start a business. Had no clue what the business looked like.
Yeah.
The business is just, me doing diversity, equity, inclusion things currently right now in the accounting profession. And that just happened last year. I just started last year. So,
Okay.
Things happen when I think they should happen. But I do believe in writing those things down. And then, I think the steps to that would reveal themselves.
Yeah, you figure it out along the way. I'd love to learn more about the children's book. Let's chat more about that. What was the inspiration that you had, and what was the process like? And what's your goal with it?
So the inspiration was to, one, have students see themselves in the pages of the book. So if you get a chance to get the book or see the book, it is very diverse. Like, it's every race, ethnicity, it's gender, on the whole spectrum that it's very gender ambiguous. And also, I wanted to introduce children at an early age about the accounting profession. So most people ask me, like, what age is the book for?
Yeah.
I say pre-K to third or fourth grade.
Okay.
For various reasons. Yeah, it may be a reading level of, first and second grade. However, like, just the images of the book, like, the book can be read to children. It's so colorful and vibrant that I think it would gain the interest of kindergarten, pre-K student.
Yeah.
And also, I just think it's, for households as well, because a lot of families don't even know what accountants, are. So it's even an introduction in that sense to a whole family that may have no clue about the profession.
And so it's focus on the profession. And is it, yeah, well, actually, I want to understand the process for getting it done. Like, did you, write the book? Did you work with a ghostwriter? How'd you get this thing illustrated? All those nuances.
So I wrote the book in 2019. Okay. So, and again, if you, see the book, is very, very simple, nothing, very heavy about like the content. It's just, again, an introduction, exposing students to the profession. So it starts out saying accountants are fun. And so,
nice.
And so, but it was more so about the illustration. And so that took the most time. So thinking about what I wanted the imaging to be, along with, again, I'm calling it the simple text. I still think it's a powerful message, but I call it the simple text because the illustration is what brings it to life. And that was the main concern.
Yeah.
What was children see when they flip through the pages? And that was the back and forth process with the illustrator to make sure that it was as diverse and inclusive as possible.
Okay. So the goal was, explaining the profession and putting it out there as a thing, and then really visually making it feel inclusive and everyone empowered to be able to pursue a career in accounting.
Right. Because I mean, the profession is, predominantly white, it's predominantly white male. Mm-hmm. And so, I just got a call earlier, and, we're still at 1%, and it's been 40 of 1% of Black CPAs in the profession, that's been the same way over 40, 50 years.
That's still true. That's mind-boggling to me.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, of course the number has increased, but the percent is still the same. So,
percentage is what matters.
Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's concerning. Let's work on that. Sounds like you're doing a good job taking some steps on that front.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, taking steps on that front. Again, this is just one thing. Again, there's, other ideas, and what I've enjoyed about the book being released is that it's starting conversation and it's restarting conversations. I get so many messages about, oh, I had the same idea. Like, I wish I had went ahead and did it. Like, yeah, you can, because I'm sure your book idea was totally different from mine. Like, I only know of 2 books. Like, yeah, before I published mine, in 2019, when I was going to publish it, someone else published theirs, and I read it to a first grade class. And I was like, great, like we have a book out here, for accountants, for children. And then, so mine is, from what I know, is to be the second one. But 2 is still not enough. So we need tons of books that has different perspectives, because we are all different, individuals. So
yeah, definitely. Now, definitely don't let a competitor slow you down just because someone else had the idea. Maybe it's just validating the idea. It's all about execution and putting out a really good product, and maybe a little bit of a different product.
Yeah. And so, I think that's important to, I was happy to see it. And I think that's the mindset we need to have. Like, I was happy to see, okay, someone did what I was thinking about. And then, like, wow, let me go ahead and, do my version of it. Because there's just, like, there's no limit to the amount of content that, like, we need more.
For sure. There are many books on other topics that are very repetitive. And I would actually like some more of that in accounting, because broadly speaking, there's not a ton of accounting literature out there for any role either. It's been really interesting for us learning about that, researching more and more. It's like there's not a ton of stuff out there for getting into the profession and getting better. So I'd love to transition to Howard and your role at Howard. And it seems like you have a pretty big role over there. So if you could just give us a lay of the land, that'd be helpful.
Yes. So I've been at Howard for 5.5 years. And I'm currently the department chair. So it encompasses a lot of things. So,
what does that actually mean? We all had the department chair, but I don't know what they did.
So the department chair is, you have the faculty in the department. And so the department chair is pretty much the individual that manages, issues with faculty, issues with students. They're I'll call it for middle management between the dean, which is the person that's over the School of College of Business. And so I do a lot of administrative work. I still teach, and do research, which a lot of people don't know that we do research. But let's touch more on that in a second. Right. I'd love to hear more. But it's a lot of administrative work. So, course scheduling, if there's student issues as far as grievances, if there's, faculty issues, I deal with that. I deal with, if there's recruitment, scholarships, internships. Just a various amount of different administrative duties.
What's the most common student complaint you hear? I got an 89. Can I just get an A?
It's like as a professor, or as the department chair?
As the department chair. I'm sure you have people who are maybe a little more open with you than they are directly with their professor.
Oh yeah. So normally it's just this professor did not listen to my issue, my concern. Like, I need I want to complain about my grade. That's normal. And that's pretty much consistent, even as a professor teaching a course. That's the thing that happens. Like, I'm not happy with my grade. So,
Okay.
And thinking back on it, I'm sure I probably did the same thing.
I probably did a bit of the same as well. It's an 89. Just give me the A minus. What's the big deal?
Yeah. And that is very interesting, because I've had probably more students come to me about B to A grades than anything else. So, like, I have an 89, like, I need, like, give me that A. And I don't know, you didn't earn it. Like, this is the syllabus.
Well, those are like the folks who have their whole identities wrapped around being a 4.0 GPA. I want to be totally clear. I was not a 4.0. That was like not 89 to an A wasn't me because I was an excellent student. It was just an example. But yeah, I that makes complete sense to me. Not many people who are getting 79s are complaining about getting a B because they're kind of used to not getting A's. So
it happens, but I just from my experience, more have been the 89 to or the 88. Like, no, I need a B. Like, yeah,
you're a solid B plus. Let's be proud of that. Be proud of that. So, which class are you still teaching?
So this semester I'm teaching accounting information systems.
Very cool.
I kind of move around to like what's needed to be taught. Like, so I get like the leftovers.
That's kind of sweet. Get to rotate.
So I've taught accounting information systems. I taught accounting principles 1, accounting principles 2, cost accounting. I taught international accounting.
Okay.
I taught.
Can you tell me more about the accounting systems course? That was something that did not exist when I was majoring in accounting.
Really? So it's actually a required course, and so we look at just account information in general, different terminology, but the main thing is looking at like Microsoft Excel. I use Microsoft Access, Tableau. I've seen some individuals use QuickBooks. When I came through, we used Peachtree.
Peachtree, nice.
Yeah, so just introducing, especially now, those different data analytic tools, visualization software, so like Power BI, and Python. Like there's so many now. So introducing those things to analyze data, accounting data, looking at if there's return on equity, or that return on investment, whatever that case may be.
All of that helps in the reconciliation process when you're dealing with the data outside in the real world. That's very cool that they're learning things like Tableau and Python. I mean, I'm of the opinion that's sort of the future of the accountant, is you're going to need that knowledge. So that's perfect. I was not learning about that stuff. It was like Excel 101, here's how you do it. And then you put proficient in Excel on your resume, and then you apply for your jobs. That's about it. Do you teach an audit course?
I have not taught an audit course. I was a tax auditor for 3 years with the state of Mississippi Department of Revenue, and I do audit, an area of audit research, but I have not taught the auditing course.
Okay, that was the one where it felt like a foreign language. I was like, what are these like assertions, and what are we talking about? This is totally different than accounting, it seemed like. So I have to imagine that'd be a tough course too, a tough course to teach, plus like prepping people mentally for going off into the audit world. And is that how a lot of the students at Howard, what's the standard like kind of career progression for a student coming out of Howard?
So we have had a lot of success for students going into the Big Four accounting firms. And just also regional and local accounting firms. It is very heavily accounting firms, but we also have, large companies that, our students go to as well, such as Johnson & Johnson or, Amazon and so on. So we have been fortunate. We have had a connection with a lot of different companies and firms that our students have, great opportunities once they finish.
If you had to guess, so let me set context a little bit, is it feels like at most accounting programs, it's like you're going into the audit world. That's what you do next. But I actually think there's a really good case to be made for going into corporate accounting, going into industry first as a learning experience. What percentage from Howard would you say are going into corporate accounting? If you just had to guess, is it 2% or is it 30%? I'm really, really curious. And then do you guys ever have conversations around that, around how, my gripe is in audit, you've kind of never done the work, yet you're telling people who have done the work how to do their work, which to me is like mildly offensive. So I was wondering if, there's any conversation around like, maybe it's better to learn and actually do the job before you go and tell other people how to do the job.
Yeah, so I'll say for our accounting students, I say most of them are going into the accounting firms, and they are going into audit, tax, or consulting with those firms. So I don't know the actual percent. I say majority, 75 to 90%. Okay, are going to those accounting firms. So, but no, I do like your perspective of what you said. So. No, I do like your perspective. Yeah,
it's sort of a common gripe of mine. If you like on my other stuff, I complain about this a lot because it's like you learn so much when you actually do accounting and you get so much better at it. I oftentimes thought after I'd started doing accounting, how much better of an auditor I would have been if I could go back and do it all over again. Like I really get the debits and credits. I understand the reconciliation process. I get how the ERP works and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like those are very applicable to audit and make you a better auditor, but such is life. We started audit.
Well, you know what? I just from my experience as being an auditor, and again, I was a different type of auditor, but still an auditor.
It's close enough. Yeah.
Right. What I enjoyed about it was there was always a different company. So I had to do the research and learn about the company and about the business and the ins and out of it. So yeah, I wasn't, because if you're in corporate, you will only get that perspective of that particular company. So when you come back into audit, you won't know. But I was excited about, okay, today I'm going to look at a manufacturing company, and tomorrow I'm going to look at a company that sells refrigerators. Like, it was always something different.
Yeah.
And so even though in general the processes for me, as a state auditor, was the same. So, but I do see your perspective.
That's a really good. I do think that's the best argument for audit, and getting different exposure. Yeah, it was great. I had maybe like 12 different clients, 15 different clients in my 4 years there. And that's great. I would say piece of advice is to not get stuck on like a Fortune 500 company, because you can be there year round and you don't get that exposure to other industries, other businesses. So advice for people listening is, if you get put on Ford, try to get taken off of Ford as quickly as possible and put on slightly smaller engagements. Yeah. All right. So I'd love to circle back to the research component of what you do. What are you following? And is that helping you create curriculum going forward?
So my initial research was looking at, in general, how audit regulations, so auditing standards for public companies, how they would apply or impact non-public companies, so not-for-profit organizations and private companies. That has shifted more so now, because I'm in a different space, now the department chair. So I'm thinking about like curriculum, I'm thinking about more so diversity, equity, and inclusion now. And so that's the space I am now. So some of my research I'm working on is looking at why students choose to be a accounting major, what barriers are in place. Some of the things I'm looking at is, what's the makeup of, the diversity within accounting firms. So, and that's diversity and, on all spectrums. So I look, again, to answer your question, I'm looking at more diversity, equity, and inclusion things now, as well as how does that impact the curriculum. Okay.
So pretty broad. I mean, this is the fun of being a professor. You pick which area you want to research in. What gets you excited?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and that could change. I know people that, today may be researching, accounting information system, and tomorrow be researching tax. It's just, what's interest, the interest they have at that time. There is a thing that, we learn in Ph.D. program, have a research stream. So a stream of research that, this is your focus area. But I just found it more interesting, if I'm, it's more engaging if I'm interested in the topic, regardless of what that topic is. And, it's almost like the audit thing. Like, right. I don't want to do the same thing every single year. So, again, I still have some expertise and work with someone that has expertise. But if my expertise as far as research method is, experimental survey research, well, I can do that in multiple areas, especially if I'm working with someone else.
Oh, that's super interesting. So your kind of research methodology can help determine, because I was thinking, maybe there's someone who's looking at EITF meetings and trying to understand what's coming down the track on guidance things and what might we need to teach around all that. But that's like, there isn't surveying, right? That's just interpreting guidance, maybe writing some curriculum around it, interpreting it, doing that kind of thing. Okay. Had never thought of that. So you're kind of a survey expert, and that helps with different modes of research that maybe other professors are doing.
Right. So there's just different types of research, research methods, of course. So there's survey, there's experiments. There is some do field experiments. Some do archival, which we call what you're pretty much talking about is you have a data set and you're analyzing how these factors influence these variables. So, yeah, there's sort of different research methods. Sometimes they're intertwined and they're mixed, and that one method answers one question, and you have that information, so you can do another research method to answer another question. So it's interesting, but I'm at a point now that I'm very concerned about the diversity and equity and inclusion in the profession, and also just about how curriculum is, the equity. It's all the same thing for me. The equity of the curriculum for especially students at HBCUs, people of color, like how, is the curriculum serving them? And so that's what I'm looking at now, because I just think that has a different impact.
Yeah.
And it's for me more, I'm watching my words. I want anyone to come and get me, but no, it's more impactful. Well, for me, it's more impactful.
Yeah,
I can say that. Yeah.
Which makes, so I'd love for, I'm a guy of action. I like to, so for those listening, are there things that we could do to help with that issue in the profession and with curriculum?
Yes. So there's several things. So if you know someone that doesn't know about the profession, or you don't know about the profession, there's certain things you could do. You can expose your children or someone to, like, hey, have you thought about accounting? It's just like going with the default, like, hey, doctor, lawyer, teacher, or basketball player or movie star, rapper, go with things, as an accountant. And I think sometimes it may be hard because, again, everybody doesn't truly understand what accounting is. I, for years, got from my family, oh, you do taxes?
Yes.
And I just came to a resolve with myself that, why are you getting mad about this? Like, that's just what they're thinking. And there are accountants that prepare taxes. So, like, that's not a negative thing. But I was just like, no, that's not what I do.
Yeah.
I had a friend when the book came out. He was like, I never knew what you did. And I was like, okay.
That is super interesting. Yeah.
Like,
okay. So you give them the kids book, and then they can understand what you actually do, because
it's amazing. Like, he never, and we were like, we weren't like, best of friends, but we were close at, to a point that we were in the same city for a period of time. But he's like, I never knew what you did. And I was like, interesting. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's tough. Like, accounting deals with stereotypes and misunderstanding of what we actually do. To your tax point, that's like a running joke within our company. Everyone thinks we can do taxes, and that's not what we do. We audit and we book journal entries. That's that's sort of our jam. And then just the nerdy stereotype that goes with it. Do you want to be associated with it? And I've noticed that the more I speak with people, when you talk about, why did you major in accounting? The answer I hear a lot is, it's what my parents did, or it felt like a good way to get a job. And so if I get within a certain group, like, if you don't have parents who have done this before, you're probably less likely to get into that profession and need that influence from outside of your family.
Right. Exactly. Right? So if you, again, like you said, most people either had someone they knew was, an accountant, like their parent, or, a relative, or somebody, a mentor in the community, or like, they were fortunate to hear about the profession, and like, I was told that it was, I would have a job, after I finish.
Yeah.
But I think it's so much more like, I think I'm fun, and I feel like you were fun. Like, so, like, and we're individual, we're diverse. So, like, how can the profession not be diverse just on the level of personality and people? Like it has to be more than what you think of the stereotype of sitting behind a desk with the visor.
It kills me. You're nailing on a personal pain point of mine. I've met thousands of accountants with FloQast. So, going to conferences on the circuit, all that stuff. And accountants are fun. And there are different types of accountants for everything. You want to go out and get super drunk with somebody, you can do that. You want to go hit the dance floor, you can do that. Like, the accountants are different. And we hire them all over FloQast. We have accountants on the sales side. There are extrovert ones with personality who love talking to people. You do have your stereotypical introvert accountants who, do their thing, but like there's a variety. And I feel like if we can break that stereotype, it might make the industry a little more engaging for your average person who thinks that all we do are taxes.
Yeah. And again, that was, that was a part of, again, the book, like that was part of the book because I just, and that was like the first thing like came to mind, like accountants are fun. Like you can't tell me that like we're all this diverse body of people and we think that this group of people is this homogeneous like stereotype. Like I just like we have to break that in. I think this is the part of the book. So yeah.
No, you're making that's I'm like processing more and more the impact of your book, and this is super powerful. And it's a long play, but like very much, in 15 years, you very well could have an impact on this and increase that percentage.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so important that and I have other, there's other ideas, and I'm enjoying like having all the different conversations I'm having with other people, and they have ideas, and I'm like, yeah, go ahead, like please execute those things, but there's already things in place that different organizations are doing, so like keep doing those things as well, like at different levels. Like we need to see it in pre-K, to third grade. We need to see it from fourth to eighth. We need to see it in high school. We need to see in the community college, colleges. We need to see all of these things in the profession, and when they get there, and retention, like getting, I'm a part of the Ph.D. project I mentioned again. So getting those diverse faculty members into the classroom so students can see themselves, like all of this works along with each other. So there's no one thing. All these things need to happen because I don't want to wait to, this have an impact. And it's just, 15 years later, like, no, all these things need to be happening at the same time so we can see the greatest impact and not have to wait to see it. Like,
so you're taking like a multi-pronged approach to hit kind of different generations and accelerate that diversity.
Yeah, I think it has to happen. One of the great things that just happened is there's a organization called the National Society of Black CPAs, and they have a number of people of color, and they have developed course materials. The people that are in the CPA review are people of color, so they can see themselves when they are listening to them. And the goal is to have all those students CPAs by the end of the year. Like, that is a great impact. If all those students, or they're more than students, all those individuals, because there are people all different ages and stages in their career. If all those people can this year become CPAs, the percentage is up. Like, and if that happens, and when that happens the next year, and it gets bigger and bigger, like I think that's like a great impact. And so all those things have to happen.
And to steal an accounting term, it all becomes accretive and continues to help the problem. Yeah,
absolutely.
Nice. Well, I've really enjoyed this. I'd love to wrap it up with, what's some advice you give students who are heading out in the real world? Are there things that they can do to really prepare themselves for that? And then I want to give you the opportunity to plug your book in a bigger way and make sure that the audience goes and gets a copy and shows their kids and tells their friends' kids about it and everything like that.
All right. So hopefully you're hearing that accounting is a profession, like accounting profession that you should consider, that you should have your, family member consider, anybody that you come in contact, to learn about accounting. There's tons of organizations out there. There's just so much that we can do, or that you or someone can do in the profession. So let's not limit our students to a certain group, a certain profession, and expose them and let them make their mind up.
Got it.
Yeah, if someone is studying for the CPA exam, no matter who you are, find a support. It is a tough exam.
Yeah.
So, find some support, stay encouraged. Um,
And presumably you encourage students to do it before they start working?
Oh, absolutely. So if you can, if your state jurisdiction says that you can sit for the exam, 120 hours, go ahead and sit, and you get those additional 30 hours in that time. That actually that'll be motivation for you to go ahead and get the additional 30, complete. So I mean, there's different things I tell every student because, depending on where they're going to sit for the exam, but let's have that conversation. So I have that conversation as soon as the first year accounting students come in. And I have that conversation also with students that are not accounting students because, for example, I had a student that wanted to sit for the CPA exam and was a finance major. And I was like, this is going to be a little, different journey for you. Like, why did you choose this major? Like, why did you just choose accounting? And at that point, it's kind of too late when the student came to me.
Yeah.
But I think, again, just having those conversations, talking about it, I think us telling our stories is important. This opportunity here is important. Somebody, hopefully, is going to hear this and be encouraged to go back. They stop studying for the CPA exam and then hopefully they'll go back, or they'll tell somebody else, hey, I heard this podcast and, let's, get encourage that person to get motivated to start back studying. So again, let's just have that conversation and exposing students to the possibilities because they are endless. Everybody needs an accountant.
It's a great profession. There are a lot of jobs. It pays well. It's a great place to, and you learn a lot about business and with that, like kind of how to run your own finances. It's great.
Yeah.
All right. And let's plug the book. Let's get the audience to go ahead and go grab a copy.
Yeah. So the book is available on Amazon. The name is When I Grow Up, I Want to Be an Accountant. Again, it's on Amazon. Just type in that, or just type in Adrian Mayse. Mayse is Mayse. Adrian is Adrian. And type it into Amazon, and it should be the first or second book that pops up. For some reason, somebody else's books always, one person's book pops up all the time sometimes. But it's on Amazon only right now. But hoping to have it. Hopefully in the ebook format and even audio book in the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for reading it to the kids, a physical hard copy book is a good way to go.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Students these days, they're plugged to their devices. So I have a godson, and he just loves to flip through his iPad.
Right. So. Yeah. I have a 3.5-year-old, so I'm flipping through the cardboard books kind of deal. But I'm sure she'd be happy with the tablet in front of her as well. Awesome. Well, I've really enjoyed the conversation, Adrian. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're really busy, and I appreciate you taking the time.